Thank you, Kim.
And the national president of the Business and Professional Women, Betty Forbes.
Yay!
The national president of the National Organization for Women, Molly Yard. The national president of the Fund for a Feminist Majority, Eleanor Smeal. Ellie. And is the National League president here, Nancy? Is Nancy here? I'd like now to introduce to you a Republican member of Congress from the state of New York, Representative Bill Green, who has been a supporter of women's rights in Congress as long as
Don't know if that was for me or not. Thank you all very much, and I'm delighted to be with you this afternoon. Let me particularly thank NOW, whose New York City chapter has just endorsed me for re-election. I particularly appreciate that. Obviously, it would be easy enough to be here today and be frustrated at a platform which does not reflect the thinking of any of us in this audience. But I do want to point out that the trend is our way. If you look back in 1980 at the Republican convention there, and I marched with many of you at that convention, you'll remember that we were only able to get 9 or 10 votes in the platform committee on issues like abortion rights. And in 1984, there weren't even people making motions on behalf of them. Well, this year, even in a platform committee that's plainly stacked towards the far right, we were losing, yes, but this time we were losing by votes like 55-32, and even once we got as close as 36-30. So even on this stacked platform committee, we had roughly a third or more of the committee that was on our side, and I think it's important that we keep on fighting within the Republican Party. There's an old saying that no one offers bait to a caught fish, and I don't think the women's movement ought to become a caught fish or a one-party movement, because no one, either the people who have caught a fish or the people who want to catch a fish, offer bait to a caught fish. I think we prove with having a third of our platform committee backing abortion rights in this platform fight that we are growing in strength within the Republican Party, in the Congress of the United States, as we work on economic issues of importance to women. And because they're important to women, they're important to all Americans. We have the leadership of Republican women like Representative Nancy Johnson from Connecticut, Representative Marge Rockemer from New Jersey, Representative Claudine Schneider from Rhode Island, Representative Olympia Snow from Maine, all of whom are making vital contributions to the fight for economic equity for women. So I want to tell you that the women's movement is alive and growing in strength in the Republican Party. The progressive movement is alive and growing in strength in the Republican Party. Stick with us and let's keep fighting. Thank you all very much.
We have a couple of other dignitaries I'd like to introduce to you very quickly. The Louisiana president of the National Organization for Women, Joy Gilmore. And the state president of the American Association of University Women, Janine Ziegler. Thank you, Janine.
Did y'all have a good time on the Mardi Gras parade? Did you notice the response from the street? Were they with us? It shows that the majority of the public, and now the latest polls show that 78% of the United States and support the Equal Rights Amendment. You can see that in the streets here in New Orleans. Why we're here is very clear. We're sending a message to the Republican Party that we intend to keeping on and making them remember women's rights, that they're going to come back home again. The Republican Party was the first party to support the Equal Rights Amendment. It was the party of Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton. They've gone away from that, but boy, they're going to come back as the gender gap haunts them, election after election. And you know it's haunting them right now. As I speak, you saw us throwing out all kinds of ERA yes reminders. If you would like to help support the drive for the Equal Rights Amendment, people are using the cups now to take a contribution because we intend to pass the Equal Rights Amendment in the 1990s, and we don't care who's the president, we're passing it. I should have said we don't care who's the president because we do care, and we do vote, and we are going to remember in November, and we're going to do more than that. More and more of us are going to run for elective office. As we make sure that we push the buttons ourselves for ERA, pro-choice, child care, and pay equity. I know we all had a good time, but it's hot, so we won't make long speeches. Just keep on fighting. We will ratify Equal Rights Amendment, and we will never go back on abortion. Thank you.
Congresswoman Claudine Schneider, Republican from Long Island and a longtime supporter of the Equal Rights Amendment, is scheduled to speak. She's not here yet. There was some concern about her flight being delayed. So we'll move her to the end, and if she gets here, we'll hear from Representative Claudine Schneider, but she certainly did intend to be here. Our next speaker is the National President of NOW, Molly Yard.
Particularly the women of America, that the Republican Party has turned its back on women's rights. They have taken the Equal Rights Amendment out of their platform. They support the Human Life Amendment, which would outlaw abortions for women in this country. We will never go back. We will never go back, and we will support those candidates who will help us ratify the Equal Rights Amendment and will safeguard our right to control our reproductive lives. We intend to shadow the candidates throughout the presidential election to keep reminding the women of America that the Republicans have turned their back on ERA and reproductive rights. However, this does not let the Democrats off the hook. The Democrats, if they take the women's vote for granted and do nothing to advance the cause of the ERA or reproductive rights, will find that women will stay home in droves. They will, at their peril, ignore women's issues. Child care, pay equity, family medical leave, increasing the minimum wage, passing the ERA, and allowing a woman reproductive freedom. So, we will follow the candidates of both parties and point out there is a gender gap and that vote cannot be taken for granted. 10 million more women will be eligible to vote, 10 million more than men in November. We know that women register at a higher percentage. We vote at a higher percentage.
Y'all like to
But
hear?
do not take our vote for granted, Michael Dukakis. We expect you to be the champion of women's rights because it is time, our time has
we do insist upon the Equal Rights Amendment and reproductive rights and the other economic issues for women. We are urging and will urge both parties to have a debate on women's issues so we will know exactly where Michael Dukakis and George Bush stand. Then we will know how to vote. Our job in the National Organization for Women is to make it crystal clear which party is going to do what on the crucial gender gap issues for women. So we are urging all Dow members to work with women in other organizations, their candidates, and to keep ERA very visible and reproductive. All the work you've done, this has been a wonderful, wonderful parade. We've had a glorious time. We'll come back anytime and do another. Here's Ellen.
We came back again because we didn't do enough on the money, and we have a lot of people here with these cups. We would love you to pass the cup. The parade was a lot of fun, but like all these events, it does cost money. And if you could remember the National Organization for Women, the ERA, as they are passing them. Are you passing them? I don't think. Kim, is everybody passing the cups? Because we're sponsoring record numbers of feminist candidates in the state legislature. We already are this year. And so your money helps us put out the word on the Equal Rights Amendment so we can be everywhere. We were at the Democratic Convention. We're here in New Orleans. We will be on the presidential trail. In fact, we're calling on both political parties to have a presidential debate on women's issues. It's time that they discuss what they're going to do on women's rights in more than just slogans. And the only way they'll do that is if they have to debate women's issues for a whole hour. We think that half the public deserves at least 1 hour's debate. And that this is, we want to know more than if they're going to just put $2.2 billion or $2.5 billion into child care. We want to know how they solve the child care crisis. The Republicans have come out against pay equity. We want to know how they intend to close the wage gap, as well as how do the Democrats intend to close it. And of course, we want to know what they're going to do on ending discrimination against women. So we're going to be calling for a women's debate every step of the way. So please give generously to the Equal Rights Amendment fight of the National Organization for Women. Thanks.
She put in making this a success. And if any of you want an ERA Yes to balloon or cup as a souvenir, we're selling them right here on the side of the Joan of Arc statue to raise money for the ERA. So if you don't have your souvenir doubloons, come get them now. Thank you very much.